And we're live, as the great Joe Rogan likes to say.
Yeah, the headphones to match it though.
Very cool. How you doing?
I'm
Good to
great.
see you. I'm stoked for part 2.
Me too. See, I feel like this is going to be so hot. I've already burnt my tongue.
So you got a big race on Saturday. How you feeling?
I'm excited.
Yeah.
As I was saying to you, I'm excited, but I'm not going to blow up from excitement,
Yeah.
which is quite nice because it's quite exhausting to be really excited sometimes. But it's also strange to not really have thought about it, because when I do think about it, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
what am I doing? But I'm currently carb loading, so I'm full of carbs.
Any luck with the Rice Krispies sponsorship?
No, but if they're listening, it'd be great if they could help me out. I just bought 36 Rice Krispie square bars.
Yeah.
So.
And that is a vacuum cleaner in the background. Hooray.
I feel like it won't pick up that much.
Well, we'll see.
There we go. It's okay. I have questions to ask you, actually.
Yeah, fire away.
So you're in the hot seat today.
Awesome.
I have 4 questions that came up. 3 questions that one that I'm really interested in. But I'm going to save the best one for last.
Okay.
The first one is, which I guess is a good one for people who aren't aware. For you, what does it mean to be a monk? Because like I feel like I understand a bit, but I feel like before I learned to ascend, I assumed you were like in a cave somewhere and that you didn't do things.
I am in a cave. I don't get let out.
Yeah.
I'm not let out.
But I think you're a very active person in life. Like, you are very engaged in life. You're very excited about things, and you have many projects that aren't just about sitting and ascending and meditating. And so for you, what does it mean to be a monk?
It means devotion. It means devotion to prioritizing one thing, and that's being the best version of me. It's prioritizing peace above all other things. But that doesn't mean that to sacrifice everything else for that. And that's why I became an Ashai, was the whole 200% thing. Because they said to me, the world doesn't need cookie cutters, the same individual being pumped out of some sort of spiritual factory. It needs people who really know themselves, who are really alive to what they know and love. And I was sold on that, because I was afraid spirituality meant being in a cave, giving up all the good stuff, giving up excitement, not being passionate about stuff. But I found it's really clarified and enhanced those passions. It's like, yes, this is something I love. This is a difference I want to try and make. And so being a monk is really focused and channeled and prioritized the best parts of me. No. And I think aim or several, but I think our minds get in the way, right? The focus on the past and the future, but also the doubt, the resistance, we get in our own way so often. Well, all the time. and for me, being a monk is getting out of my way and allowing that bigger version of me to come through. I heard Paul Mort talk about that. It's just that there's a third life. There's a stage of life where life is happening to you, and then life is happening for you. And he tacked on, and then life can come through you. And I think that for me explains being a monk extremely well. The last two, life is happening for me, the appreciation, the gratitude, but then getting totally out of the way so that life can come through me. So that's what I see being a monk's about.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And when you say about life happening through you, like what do you mean by that?
Not putting a handbrake on intuition or passion, or not giving into doubt or fear or blind reaction. Really, and one of my vows is about purity. And the more I do this, the more I discover it's a purity of inspiration. It's a purity of action that's not held back by, oh, what will they think? Who am I to try this? All the stuff that goes on. I'd never done it like this before. All the kind of blah, blah, blah. So purity is the pure inspiration made manifest, I guess, happening through you. So that's what I mean by getting out of the way, is not, because I think we all have this pure, and we've talked about this before, right? These pure sparks and this inspiration, these ideas, and then Terry Pratchett, I don't know if you know him. He's a fantasy writer. He's very cool. But he talked about this beautiful idea that then is swamped by the second and third thoughts, which are always the doubt and the worry and the what ifs and I can't and what if it all goes wrong. And so it's ascension is rising above those fears and doubts and worries, and then allowing the purity of my higher self to be expressed. So, and I'm imagining it's a similar state with Ultrarunner's endurance when you strip it all back, when you get so far in the mud, the physical mud, and your face so dirty in the mental, emotional mud, is that you just don't care what people think of you anymore. You're just doing this one thing. I'm guessing. I think that's what swimming gave me, was the ability to, I just don't care. This is what I'm doing. This is what I got to do to get the job done. But yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And I guess with with some things, like, we're very assured on, like with your swimming, for example, like, I don't care what anyone thinks, this is what I'm going to do. But I guess, be that through age or how much power we give other things, I think for some things it's easier to get in your own way than other things. I don't know where that starts, but I feel like,
I think especially when you're new to stuff, you don't know the rules, you don't know how it works, and you're kind of looking at everybody else going, oh, well, I've got to copy them. I think the true leaders and the true bright lights of any field, like I was talking to a guy, his field is sales. He trains salespeople. And I saw him put up a post after our talk, and I don't know if it was related, but we were talking about finding our own path, because you can look around and look for the experts, and this works, this doesn't work, that's wrong, that's so last decade, all that stuff. Or you can go, well, actually, this feels right, this is good. And again, there's the balance, isn't there, between doing stupid things over and over again. I remember once going for a 4-day walk without any shoes. I thought it was a good idea to get back to nature. And after that 4 days, I discovered why
my shoes are in bed.
Yeah. And I'm like, but it was a powerful lesson. Yeah, give it a shot, give it a try. But I see why. So that purity, or that, I think when you're new, you're constantly looking for guidance. But I think, that famous thing about jazz musicians, you learn the rules so you can break them.
That's cool. Yeah.
But I think the quicker you can get to a place where you trust your own intuition, when it really says, hey, no, this is right for me, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to say, the better. I think there's these studies that interview old people, right, on their deathbeds, and they get them to look back on their lives, and one of the biggest regrets is, I wish I listened to my intuition. I wish I'd tried that thing. It's never ever failing or making a mistake. It's always, I really wish I gave it a shot. I really wish I'd kissed that person, or set up that business, or traveled more, or got out of my own way a bit more.
And I guess that's also unclear when you're so full to the brim with the voices telling you can't, not today, you're not good enough for that, what will they think? You can't, you have no, like, I think that's one thing that I feel like I'm getting from going within more, is clarity. And I never, like, I was speaking to my friend Jodie earlier, she was asking, I can't remember, it was a long-winded question, but anyway, I think she asked, like, why did I choose to want to take a more, go into spirituality or within, or meditation, whatever you want to call it. And like the first reason I learned to ascend and signed up to your weekend was because I wanted to be able to work more hours without feeling so exhausted.
Yeah.
Like I wanted to just, I'll have a bit of rest there,
Yeah.
and then I can just carry on beasting myself. And that's not at all what I was getting back from it. Like it's completely like I never went for clarity. I never came for clarity, but as weeks progress, I'm becoming more and more clear on. And it's not that I'm getting new ideas or new things. It's just more that everything that was already there is, I can just see it because it's not, I'm aware of all the other reasons in my head as to, oh no, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that. And that's really cool. That's really cool to see. And I think there's a lot of noise in the world because of social media, other people's opinions and all that. And I think that when you're new to something, it's so easy to get lost in that noise. And I had a coach with this lady yesterday, and she's wanted to set up as a personal trainer. She's wanted to grow a business and blah, blah. And she just wanted basically wanted me to tell her, how did I set up a business?
Right.
So at the start of the call, I was like, I can relate to you everything I did, but you've just described how overwhelmed you are with all these 10,000 things you've seen that you should be doing. I was like, that's not going to help. And we kind of got to the end of the call, and there was nothing she really needed to do other than to just listen to what felt right, which was to just speak her passion. And that was the conclusion we came to. And she had so many questions and so much kind of analysis of, yeah, but like, you know, I know that I should post at this time and I should be writing this kind of thing and I should be doing this course and blah, blah, blah. But then kept coming full circle to, but all I want to do is just help these women. Like, and we just started chatting. It was like, just speak about it. Just you do that. And because she's got so much noise on social media, different courses of different business mentors, different everything saying how many different things you should be doing, that she's so, although she knows what she wants to do, she's continuously questioning it because she's lost in all of these. And that's why she was so overwhelmed. But I think that really amazes me how there's, like, I think we look for answers a lot, and we think there's a better way of doing things. And of course, context there is always sometimes, but like, I think often we're just running away from what we know is true. And we're like we know that, you know, the feeling of actually, be it in business or anything, I want to do that. But the reason that you're not is because of all these other voices. And I think that's the importance of coming full circle. Like, you might be a monk, and that might be, you know, the devotion to the internal, but that therefore allows the external. And I think you can't, I really don't think you can have a secure or playful time in the world without prioritizing within, because you've got no bricks or no foundations to build that house. And I've heard that so many times, and like, I think it's one thing to hear, but I think I'm definitely seeing that just that clarity, and to just, because there's always going to be 7,000 things, different ways of doing things, but we kind of always know what to do. Like that's the true essence of coaching, is the person has the answers, like facilitate a space for them to come out with them. That's great. Like, we know what to do. But we can't listen to it because we can't see it. So that clarity is really cool.
There was a friend of mine, and a long time, years and years back, and she said, my passion, I really want to be a counselor or a psychotherapist, but I just don't know what to say. And it was almost like she was wanting the answers ahead of time. And just what you were talking about there, the whole sense of sitting with someone and allowing, through a conversation like this, to allowing a deeper truth to be revealed to themselves that was always there, but the noise was on top. I think that's the essence of a counselor or a therapist or a leader or a parent or a coach is, hey, what do you know? And in this age of Instagram, there's so many people saying, hey, I'm the expert, follow me, do what I say, pay me lots of money. And, you know, and it's you don't see it much anymore, but that word authenticity was making the rounds. You know, hashtag authentic. And sometimes it's to I remember there was a point in my life where I realized I was waiting for permission. I was waiting for someone to tell me it's okay for you to go do the things that you really want to do.
Mm.
And it was something wrapped up around, well, I should be doing this. These are my responsibilities. What if I just said to heck with that and just fully dove head first? And every coach, every mentor said the same thing, circling back around to, but I really like this. And they just repeated the same words back to me and saying, well, what's stopping you? Why are you waiting? What are you waiting for? And it was a real revelation to go, I'm just waiting for someone else to say, it's okay, you can do it. You're qualified, you're skilled, you're wanted. As opposed to being that authentic, like, yes, I love this. And this is what I want to play with, put it out into the world. And so that was a powerful realization too. All those shoulds, and almost like we want the parent figure to say, it's going to be okay. You're good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And man.
And I guess in a way with that, like, it's a very subtle and easy way to procrastinate on what you know that you want to do, because like you can spend so much money on courses, books, everything, but I feel like for a lot, and speaking from experience, like it's really easy to kind of justify that as, oh, I'm just getting a bit more information and then I can. And it's like I've got a friend who's a physio, and I think she must have about 30 qualifications, and she's only now just starting to put herself out there. And it's like, and sure, I'm sure there's a reason for it, but it's a really easy way to justify to yourself. And it's almost like that discomfort kind of weighing up. Like, I think it's actually a bit more uncomfortable and scary to, right, screw all of that noise, all the other ideas, I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah.
I think that's way more uncomfortable, although it's more simple and perhaps more easy than to say, I'm actually going to spend 5 years working with this coach, this thing, than to just do the work. And I guess that's the whole resistance thing, isn't it? And the whole...
Yeah. Well, do the work and show the work.
Uh-huh.
Because that was a big thing from perfectionism. Like, I've no problem doing the work here in this little room, but to actually open the door and say, hey, this is what what do you think? that was a big thing. But so that's all about doing. But what I think one of the biggest things that we all have is the fear that we're not good enough as ourselves. And we're waiting for permission to be, it's okay to be you. And that's what circling back to authenticity. I love that. I think that being a monk really is one of the biggest lessons, is it's okay. I'm perfectly fine. I'm my own worst critic, but without that voice of criticism, there's freedom. There's such a lightness and ease of being in my own skin. And just that permission to be oneself is phenomenally freeing, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'd say I found from ascension, from a spiritual path. And maybe, maybe that's just to kind of tie into ultra running. Maybe that's the same deal with that. I see a lot of good characters there.
Oh yeah, I think that's a good point, because I think ultra running has a community. And I've not been in it long. Like, I'm definitely not a veteran, but the people I've met through it, they're all just a bit different, but in a really great way. Like, I think the most common age of the average age of like an ultra runner, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like people in their 40s, which like makes no sense, because like from like a physiological health level, from a joint health level, from a fitness, everything does not tick on as to why somebody in their mid 40s would go and try and run 100 miles. Like, their body shouldn't really be in the prime position to do that. But people tend to get into it after having some kind of midlife crisis or something. Like, everybody I've met always has a story, and it's always just this tipping point of, and then I just thought, screw it, I'm just gonna do what I want to do, and that somehow transpires into just running and just just being. And there tends to be there's a really cool link. I've just bought a book actually by, I can't remember his name. I don't know what it's called either actually, but it's about like the transcendental side of running. And every day I've met, everything I've read, there's a huge crossover with ultra running and kind of being and mindfulness and all that kind of thing. And I think that's where the two come into play, because again, you get out of your own way. You're not, I don't know if it's because, you know, the majority of people who run ultramarathons aren't really concerned about times or pace, or it's just about having a good time and meeting people, and there's such a sense of community which I've never found anywhere. But that kind of, like, you can't not be yourself when you're doing something like that, because 10 miles you can put on a facade, 15 miles maybe, 20 miles, yeah, you're just going downhill from there. You can't, like, I remember when I did the ultra in Snowdon, I think we were at like mile 45, 5 miles left, and I was running in the dark, been going for like 16 hours. I was running with this guy who was running 100 miles, so he wasn't even halfway, and I was about to finish. No idea what it's called, don't know who he is. We were chatting for like an hour just about the meaning of life, and then off he went, never saw him ever again. But it's like, you really just get down to just the basics of just life, of just, it's almost like that whole noise thing. It's like it just gets far and far and far away. And obviously it helps that you are like physically in a different place, and you're physically in your body, and that allows for a certain experience. But there's definitely authentic people in ultra running, and be that through, you know, I don't know. I guess because you have to be really intimate with yourself. Like, you can't not be okay with being in your own skin to run for however many miles or hours you're going to run for. You know, like, one of actually, I was reflecting on this, one of the main reasons I actually got into it this time last year when I signed up to my first 50 miler, the kind of goal was, I need to figure out how to stop being so horrible in my head. I need to figure out how to just not be in such a poor mental place. And almost like, if I'm going to do that in this process, I'll have to figure it out, because I can't run for 13, 14 hours with the headspace I used to have. So it was almost like a bit of a backwards goal, but through that I learned to ascend and lots of other things. But I guess also, just in the process of running for long periods of time, you kind of have to, like, it's a bit like if you're ever at a party or like somewhere where there's a big buzz and there's a big kind of like energy, and then you leave and you get in a car or you go to bed and you're on your own and it's silent. It's almost like, I remember I used to feel so like alone, and so like there's this like little interim period of like, oh, it's all stopped and now it's just me. And it's a similar feeling of if I've got some resistance to sitting down to write, and I finally sit down to write, the first 10, 15 minutes, it just feels a bit, ugh, and then you get into it. And it's the same with running. Like, for the first, and especially I think running, like, 'cause I don't run with any headphones, and I used to always run with headphones. And when I like transitioned to not using any headphones at all, having no kind of noise in my ears, then first 15, 20 minutes was like, oh, this is awful. Like, I can just hear myself and my thoughts, and it's so uncomfortable. But I think that's massively contributed to my journey, so to speak, because you have to be comfortable with yourself, and therefore you have to, well, not have to, but I think you get to know yourself, because you can truly, you can see the way you think, the way you feel, your reactions to things really clearly when you're in your body a little bit, but aware of your mind. And especially when you're running quite slow, you're not exerting so hard or so fast that you can't have an awareness. And I think maybe that's the why people who partake are really cool.
I found the same in the outdoors.
Yeah.
Like a really humble, inclusive, encouraging of any effort, no elitism. I don't know, maybe in some parts, but it was really the first time I met a group of people who seemed to wholeheartedly accept me for what I was, as a complete bumbling, enthusiastic beginner, they were like, brilliant, come along, we'll help you, we'll lend you stuff, we'll rescue you, we'll
Yeah.
we'll look after you because someone did it for us. But I wonder if it's about humility too, because the physical challenge, the mental, emotional challenge is always greater than, will always be greater. It doesn't matter how good you are, there's always something else. And I think that puts our egos perhaps in our place and goes, well, there's no room. You can't have a huge ego and do an ultramarathon because the physical challenge, the emotional challenge would be so much greater. You can't climb a mountain and really, they say I conquered the mountain, and every mountaineer will say, no. It was dancing with something far greater than me, and I got lucky today. But it's that experience that the greatest, for me at least, was the greatest thing, and that was my own critic and my own fear. And I could approach it, or I could run away from it, and that was totally my choice. Running away had one result. It usually was like, I've most of the time, maybe 50-50. 50% of the time I was like, I'm so glad I backed off, or 50% of the time I'm like, no, I think you could have done. Do you know there's a reckoning? I thought I could have done better. But that whole humility of the internal game, the external environment, something about that humility, I don't know.
That's a fantastic point. I think that humility is a huge thing, and I think, like you said, it's probably related to the fact that you're dancing with something so much greater than you are, than what your mind conceives you to be. And I think for me, ultra running, or just running, is and was the first kind of selfless thing I've done. Selfless, the wrong word, but like ego free to some extent. Like it was the first thing I ever took part in that wasn't about achievement. It wasn't about achieving. It wasn't about success. It wasn't about measuring myself. It was about experiencing, and it was about just being really open to what I can experience. And I think, again, that's kind of free of the whole self-measuring, free of what the rest of life is like. And I think that also was kind of an introduction as to like, oh, it doesn't need to be like that, even in life, like it doesn't all need to be about self-measuring and success and numbers. And I think there's something really freeing about that. But that, you've planted a seed in my head with that humility thing. That's definitely true. And that's the authenticity thing, I think, of the freedom of just being able to just be yourself. And I guess it's comes maybe a bit of a loop into like flow state, in that like you have no, it's not selfless, it sets no sense of self.
Both,
like you no sense of self. You just do, and you just are. And I think that allows something really special, because again, you're not in your own way. And it means that when you meet people, like the kind of friendships, like you said, people in the outdoors, I think people who have a similar kind of, who do similar things like that, the people you meet are always amazing. And I think for all of them reasons. And that actually brings me to my question, so I'm going to insert it here. So on that flow state thing, this is where it's not a good question, but I've been really excited to ask it. What do you conceive the difference to be between flow state, where you're so immersed in something, time flies by, you have no sense of self, no concerns, no worries, you're just so immersed in it, versus mindlessness? Because the two seem to...
Mindlessness in a bad sense?
Yeah. Because I guess when you're in a state of flow, you are kind of mindless. Like, for example, like if I'm writing for like an hour and a half, I'm in a true flow, and I stop writing and I'm like, whoa, where have I been? What can also happen is, if I'm in the business of the day, emails, phone, blah, blah, and then I finish my work and then I'm waiting for the microwave to go and I'm sat scrolling on my phone and I'm like, whoa, where have I just been? The experience feels the same, but it's not.
It's not. It's terminology, because I would say you were, and this goes counter to the popular use of the term, but when you're mindless, you're actually mindful. Your mind is so full of, you're so lost in the story, the drama, the activity, the what ifs, all this is exciting. You're so absent because you're so full, because you're so narrowed into a tiny part of your mind. And true mindlessness, true flow states are where you're so absorbed, you're creating without that tiny focus, that tiny barrier. And perhaps the writing's a great example, is because you can be so, it's just flowing. It's flowing through you. You're not really concerned about whether it makes any sense even. It's just tap, 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 tap. It's just coming out. And then you can get so mindful in a negative sense that you get wrapped up in the minutiae and, oh, I wish I was somewhere else, and what will people think, and all that doubt and fear and past and future, that you lose a sense of selflessness. So it's all terminology, but it's the difference between being so absorbed in something versus being lost in your head is huge. You know, you say it feels like the same, but it's not really.
No.
You go to bed after a night of scrolling on your phone, you feel much different from a night spent creating or communing on a conversation or going for a run or creating something, being totally lost in a good way. So yeah, your mind looks back and, oh, it's just the same thing, but it's not at all. It's a completely different vibe.
That's cool. I've never heard that mindful being used like that.
I mean, you see people walking down the street, just and myself, just so mindful. I'm not actually in my body. Driving to work and having imaginary conversations, not actually appreciating the scenery, not actually just driving. And I think, had I taken a few different decisions, my life would have been like that. Just that mindfulness of filling the moment up with thinking and feeling and story and drama and imagination rather than the reality of this moment. So that's my take.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess as well, like I always used to have this weird desire, which was like, I feel like I've always been really aware, but like sometimes a bit too aware. Like, and maybe when I was maybe like 6-7 years ago, I remember I'd just look at people and I just wish I was in their head. Because like, I mean, I bet I didn't, but like for example, when people live in a state of ignorance, or not ignorance, we'll just say that people just aren't very aware of their thoughts, their emotions. They just kind of, they're just like a puppet on a string. Just oh no, this. Like, are they having a negative experience because they're in a way free of the awareness which can give the judgment of. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I
think of it more like just like sleepwalking. Do you know, you're kind of participating in life, but not actually in it.
Yeah.
Versus when you're really present, really in a flow state, you're life is turned up. And you can see those thoughts and the doubts coming a mile away. You can see them coming, those puppet strings being pulled from far and beyond.
Yeah.
I see you. So it's not, and again, it's not as bad. Everybody falls asleep. You know, it's really when you make the most of being awake. And again, coming back to what a monk, that's the priorities, to make the most of the time when I'm awake, make most of now, the only time I can be awake. But as opposed to being sleepwalked and like we said last time, the thoughts that say, hey, you're doing great, are the exact same thought that says you're an idiot. And so that waking up from the dream and cutting the puppet strings is everything to a happier, fulfilling moment, but a happier, fulfilling life. And really creating your own destiny in terms of rising beyond your old patterns and beliefs, the things you've been taught and conditioned, the negativity, all of that stuff. It's making your way in the world and really living the life you were born to live rather than the life that you were taught to live. So, and there's nothing wrong with it, and people can have and I call it the curse of the pretty good life.
Yeah.
You can say it alone. It's everything's okay. It's not too bad. There's a few ups, a few downs, but I think sometimes when people really get bashed about by life, they realize, gee, I want to do something different. My mind is a nightmare. My life is chaos at the moment. What do I do to get out of this? And so it's actually a blessing, because it means that you rise so far beyond the sleepwalk stage. It's a good thing. So again, it's not happening to us, it's happening for us. And it's really just life knocking on our doors to say, hey, wake up, man. Wake up. And it can be a gentle invitation. It can be a sledgehammer to the door, knocking it down, saying, wake up. I'm going to strip everything away from you until you realize there's a greater power. And however you relate to that. But yeah.
Yeah. And I guess that's the whole kind of what we're willing to accept, you know. And I've always known that, not always known, but I feel like I've been aware for a long time that I refuse to live that life of puppetry, of just being flung about by my mind, by what you should do. I couldn't tolerate it at all.
No, me neither.
No. But I wonder how much of that is like, do you think everybody's like that?
Don't think so. I think
No.
people have more degrees of that than others.
Yeah.
Like some people really are like, man, I don't want to compromise. I want something else. I want the very best from this. And, yeah. So we could have the same conversation with someone and they'd just go, wow, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Perhaps just they wouldn't even see it or hear it. Our filters really, something about that Einstein quote, you can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. And when your consciousness lifts, you see the world differently, you hear things differently, you pick up different signs and the synchronicities and all this stuff. Oh, wow. Same world, but different consciousness that lived it, is living it.
Yeah. Something that I came to realize and was thinking about is the difference between thinking and thoughts. Can you elaborate?
Yeah.
Because I feel like for me, that's a huge revelation of right, thoughts not in my control. They happen, they come up, they disappear. Thinking, however, is a choice. That's a conscious grabbing on.
Yeah. Well, initially unconscious, and then there's a point of awareness where you become conscious or not, and you go, oh, I'm going to continue.
Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, well, think of the clouds. They arise. They exist in the blue sky. Nothing you throw into the sky can affect the clarity of the sky. It's untouchable. All thoughts arise in a field of awareness that is also untouchable. Regardless of the thought that goes through your system, regardless of the emotion that goes through your system, ultimately that state of awareness is uncolorable, untouchable, pure. Now, what we do is we just fall asleep, and we reduce that field of awareness so much that we become, all there is the thought, is the thinking. And that's the practice for meditation, is the escaping, or the stepping back from the thought to realize this, all of this comes from a field of awareness and returns to this field of awareness. And you zoom in again, you fall asleep and you get wrapped up in thinking, and this is exciting. And then you wake up and step back again. So it really is, as you say, it becomes more and more of a choice. But until you realize that choice now, you were asleep. You couldn't make the choice in the past. You couldn't do it this morning.
Yeah.
You can only do it now. And why that's important is because when you're thinking, when you're so narrowed in on this tiny little part of the universe, that's all there is. So if the voice says you're doing great, you temporarily feel inflated. It may even lead to arrogance and elitism and all that stuff. If it says you're a loser, a failure, that has certain results as well. The same thought, it's just the degree of attachment to the voice. When you step back from it and you have a wider field of awareness, it can arise, you're an idiot, and fall away, and you go, that was a funny voice.
Yeah.
But that's why it's important to be able to step back, is because it gives you freedom from, the past, the future, from the critic, from the evaluation, the self-management, that I shouldn't, everything we've been talking about this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And you live more authentically from that space of awareness. So that's the dance, really, is realizing when you've fallen asleep and you just wake up, cool, step back and engage in presence and the present moment.
Without picking up a stick.
Oh, yeah.
And beating yourself. Yeah.
I mean, the ego is the only thing that wants to destroy the ego. I'm a failure, I'm a loser. And all that's happened is you've zoomed in on that particular thought that about your evaluating and measuring your spiritual or your mental focus project. It becomes about another thing you have to achieve, another mountain you have to climb. But the more you do it, the more you realize there is nothing to achieve. You always were that sky. You always were that awareness. And through habit, you've just been lost in this tiny part, this movement of energy, of thought, of emotion, and stepping back. I never had to do a single thing to become myself. I just had to wake up to realize. And some people do it through jumping off bungee jumps and ultra marathoning and eating competitions and having babies and walking on beaches and sunsets. And there's this gap. We get the reason we do the things we love is because there's a gap. There's a wideness. There's a relief from the focus on our minds, the tiny little narrow mindedness. and really, for me, meditation is learning to take those special times and make it all the time. That widening, relaxing, attentionless state. And that's why it's so difficult for people to realize. Like you're talking about, there's so much you can achieve and get and chase, and yet all those things are best achieved from a state of perfect contentment, where you know there's nothing left to hide, nothing left to prove, nothing left to become. And our poor little heads can't get around that.
No.
But you can definitely experience it.
Have you heard of Jeff Foster?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was reading his poetry book, and there's a really cool bit in it about like his take on what meditation is. And I've never heard it put like this. I mean, I can't remember word for word, but it was in essence, it was basically that, meditation isn't about relaxing. It's not about feeling better. It's not about changing yourself. It's not about all these things that people come to meditate to do. It's about just being where you are. It's about literally tuning in, having an awareness of your thoughts, of your feelings, of your experience from a non-judgmental place, and just observing and just. But it's interesting because, like, to relate it to what you said, I guess because a lot of people come from a place of pain, a place of suffering, you want to change, you want to feel different.
Yeah.
But I don't think it makes much sense to us in the Western world, because it's like I remember I read a book 3 or 4 years ago, and it was like, everything you need, you have. And I read it like 4 times. I thought, this is so cool. I didn't get it. Like I thought it was a lovely like little message. And like, well, what do you mean? Everything I need, I have. Like, what does that mean? But I think that's a really bizarre but also empowering concept, that not even concept, but truth, that beyond all of that, beyond all of the mind's chatter, there is just this awareness and this thing that can see all of that. And do you think in some ways that, because I guess there has to be some kind of desire for change to seek out truth or meditation or take more of an inner journey. But I guess, where does that line stop where you can actually get lost in
the search
because you never find it?
Yeah. And Buddha said something along the same, that I'm cursed if they're cursed if I don't tell them about the truth, that there's something different, and they're cursed if I do. I'm damned if I do or damned if I don't, because we get on the search, and really you go on the search to realize you got to stop searching some stage. And bring it back to what we said in the beginning, that you can be so enamored with the spiritual sense of progress and doing this course and that course and becoming this person, that you got to stop at some stage and realize that there's no more becoming. There's awake or asleep. And that's a cool thing. There is only now, and that becomes so much more your reality. It's like, this is it. And yet there's more.
How was your experience with that, from kind of going from not a monk to where you are now? Again, process, time. Like, was there any significant point where you stopped searching?
No. Well, maybe some major bends in the road, like stopping looking for permission. But really, I think it wears out. I think it just, there wasn't, because I was hoping, expecting for a top of the mountain, a lightning bolt out of the blue, a big sign, you have arrived, this is it. And really, it doesn't seem to be that way for many people. There's the Eckhart Tolles of the world who kind of get hit by spiritual lightning, seem to have that kind of dramatic before and after picture, but I don't think it's that way for many people. I think they're the lucky one. Well, it sounds like he was incredibly confused and lost for a long time, but I think perhaps this way is easier when you just gently move into it.
And I guess in some ways, then it's easy to miss it.
Oh yeah,
because it's. I guess like what we were talking about in the first episode, that like I think presence and what comes from that can be made out to be this shining thing that is just this experience of euphoria, and that can cause you to miss the actual point, which is just to be here. And it's such a paradox. Well, it feels like a paradox.
It is. And
I think it's I think also when you come from a place of, like, I'd say I'm quite a high achiever in that I'm quite good at just doing lots of things, and have always been striving for more all the time. But that doesn't work in this.
No.
If anything, that, okay, maybe the commitment side, maybe the dedication side is helpful because I'll always commit to it. Yeah. But what I can really see going on in my own head is but we're not quite there. And then when up, and it's like, nah.
It just doesn't work.
It's the endless search. Yeah. Do you think the two can coexist?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's what your book's all about.
It's what that book's all about. But it's what we're talking about, authenticity. I think you really make the difference you're born to make when you stop striving and trying so hard, because all of that is founded on a belief that I'm not good enough yet. It's like our achievement. There's nothing wrong with achievement, but it's the attachment, the idea that our achievements mean something about ourselves. I'm proving myself by doing this in the external world, versus the if you flip that around where you're whole and complete and you're really excited, I want to try this, I'm going to give it my all, that's a completely different way of doing it. One of those is completely out of your own way. You allow it flow and passion and energy, free of doubt and fear and frustration. And the other is rocky and bumpy, and every obstacle means you're doing it wrong, or the world's out to get you, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that whole uniting the two things is so essential, and why I think it's so important that people get to know their own minds, have some sort of inner path, because especially those who really feel like they're here to achieve something or do something or make a difference. Because when you get out of your own way, you may find that the ladder that you thought you were climbing is put up against the wrong wall. You're like, I'm only doing this because my dad said I should, or everybody else is doing it. Actually, I want to climb that ladder. And it's so much more fun. You do it from a place of play rather than I need to get to the top because then I'll have something. That Netflix documentary I knew about Kilian Jornet, the runner.
Oh yeah.
What struck me was, he's definitely about speed. He was training to run the Matterhorn faster than that guy had ever run it. And he was practicing, he's putting his full effort in. But what struck me was that someone was commenting saying he's so fast because it's not about getting to the top, it's about playing. He was talking about, there was these words they're using like playing and dancing and
he was like a child, wasn't he?
Skipping and clicking his heels together, and it was the ultimate form of play, but really directed at something. And for me, that's a recent great example of you can have both and be the best at the world at something. So
I guess with him, that's I picked up on a similar thing in that, like, I think for a lot of athletes and a lot of athletes, there's an obsession that comes with the achievement that they're working towards, which again can be useful because it means that they end up getting there. But if they don't, it's like the world's ended. But I remember Kilian was saying, like, if today's not the day to go up the mountain, today's not the day. And then it always kept coming back to he just wants to play, and I think that's amazing. But again, like you said, what a great foundation to then actually achieve, because you're not your self-worth isn't based off of the achievement.
Your identity.
Yeah.
That's what I found when I was swimming. It was my identity was being a fast swimmer.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't, who was I? Yikes. It hurt. One of the first times in my life where I had no confidence because I wasn't able to achieve what I had achieved previously. It was horrible. But again, that whole happening for me, that pit, it made me go, well, if I'm not this high-performing athlete, then who am I? If I'm not these dreams that I visualize so intently, then who am I? Going back to ultra running, and my military guys, often they talk about when you strip it back to basics, just survival, just bread, water, sleep, a warm shower, maybe. Life is so simple, that hierarchy of needs, when you're existing on that, it's like, this is good. This is all I truly need. And then you can start to discover yourself. And I think that, again, a meditation practice, perhaps it strips it back to the level basics as well of, hey, there's you and your mind. Which one do you want to get to know better? The real you or the mind that thinks it's you? So, yeah.
And I think there's great stability in that, obviously, but I think when things are going well, when there's a lot of things going on for you, you're progressing in whatever it is you're trying to progress in, you feel centered because in a way you kind of are. But all it takes is, and we all experience, is something to slightly go wrong, and that centeredness that you're clinging onto so much falls away. And it's funny, actually, I was at a awards evening on Friday with Paul Mort, and I won an award, which is quite cool. But how I felt about it, like it was, oh, that's cool. And and it was kind of put in a box and away.
Yeah. You didn't splash it out on Instagram.
No. But like previously, maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, because my entire self-worth was based on my job, my training, what I look like, all of these external things, to win something like that, it would be, like, go me, and almost like, not necessarily externally, but it would be like a shelf of confidence in my mind that I'd always fall back on. Oh yeah, but I did that and I got that, and I know I'm liked, and it was really strange because I almost like, that's cool, and I didn't feel anything else other than that. But I think really just because it's not me. Like that award isn't me. I've not or lost anything through getting that, or through even not getting it. It's a strange experience for me because I've never been like that. It's always been like if I didn't get it, oh, what have I done wrong? What's wrong with me? But if I did get it, this thing that I can boost my ego with, I can feel better about myself with. But again, it's that shakiness, because that will go at some point. And that's always been my fear with running, with doing anything that I love, always is, when's this going to be taken away? And like the fear of injury, the fear of all these things, because how will I cope when I'm not there? But what peace I feel to know that whatever happens, I feel like I have that anchor point. And I feel like that's such an important part of life, because especially when we live in a world like today where we can do so much and we can achieve things and we can try things and we can, and it's so common with athletes, celebrities, people in the military. Like when men in the military leave the military, their entire sense of self is gone. They don't know who they are, no confidence, no nothing. Same with athletes when they finally retire. Musicians, drug addiction, like it's
parents.
Yeah.
Even.
Yeah.
Their kids leave home. Oh, who am I? My babies. And all of that.
Yeah. And that's scary.
Yep.
And I don't want that.
No. And that's where I realized, in my former life, I was clinging to certainty. Oh, once I get all my ducks in a row, that. But I realized the ducks will always shift. The ducks will always move. The external stuff will always change. And finding that anchor within yourself, in yourself, is, like you just beautifully said, it's everything, because it sets you free. Nothing to prove, nothing to hide, everything to enjoy. And the local running club, often, people say, what do you do? I'm a meditation teacher. And they say, oh, running's my meditation. I'm like, brilliant. I hope you just can run forever.
Mm-hmm.
But, people do get injured. They run twice a day, every day, because that's their solace.
Mm-hmm.
And great. But when you can't do that, what do you have? Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to enjoy anything, everything. Because that's the other thing. I was only happy when I was running, climbing, kayaking, snowboarding. I was constantly looking forward to the next thing. Oh, what's happening this weekend? Da, 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 da. Woo. Like you were saying in the beginning, I'm so excited about Saturday, and it was only Tuesday, which is great in one sense. But when Saturday came along and it didn't happen the way I wanted to, oh man, I was crushed. And I couldn't enjoy it for what it was.
And it's I think you described it once as almost like an addiction.
Oh yeah.
And I think I said before, like it's what it felt like, and in a way it kind of feels like it's like a withdrawal period of like when you're so used to being so excited about something, or like this award, for example, like to not really have such extreme joy about it, and kind of it was almost like, oh,
really?
Where's that?
Yeah. I'm just being me.
Yeah.
Why am I getting a prize for being me?
Yeah. And in a way, like with the so excited about this thing at the weekend that I'm going to do, and that's really fun to feel that. So it can kind of feel like you're missing out in a way. At least it felt like that for me for a period of time like, oh, that really kind of fun excitement, that kind of feeling in your belly of like, oh wow, I'm doing this thing. It's not quite as intense anymore. But subsequently, the other side of that, of when it's over, of the dread of, oh, I need to go back to normal life now, and okay, I'll get through these next few days, and I can do this thing, and that's not there. And for me, I'd much rather play the game of having not too much of that, but anchoredness, than being so caught in the waves up and down. And I remember I always used to think to myself, like, I don't think to myself, I think I read somewhere, but and with running, I used to kind of say, yeah, you just learn to ride the waves. And something I've came to is that that's great. And I think that's kind of the levels of consciousness thing. Like, I guess it happens to me, by me, for me, through me. And I feel like riding the waves, that kind of, it happens by you. Like, you do all the forcing, you do all the thinking, you do all the things. You know, you're in control. But I think to be able to come below the sea and to just stay there and to be able to see the waves going up and down, but you're centered there. To me, that's the importance of a meditation practice and becoming aware of your own mind, because even when you can be so obsessed and excited about something, it can feel really just so intensely good in the moment. There's always that thing in the back of your mind, it's going to be over soon. And I think when we were driving back from Scotland and we went hiking for a few days, I think I said to you that it's nice to not dread going home and not have this feeling of, oh God, it's over, now what? It was almost like that was great. And,
what's next?
Yeah. And to me, that's really freeing from being somebody who has really lived like that.
So perfect example of authenticity and how those two paths kind of need to coexist. Now, I tried to, when I first got into this and became a monk, it was all about present. But I realized that I wasn't really honoring the passions, or I could do that. So it was like, no, that's unnecessary. And I found that present moment state really thrives when you have a goal or a focus or a passion. It really can kind of channel and become more powerful. And my friend Simon Gwilym, who was talking about that, how there's a state of flow that you can have through just being present in each and every moment. But when you focus that flow, that's when the magic really starts to happen. And I was like, you're so right.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And that can be, looking after the kids on an evening, or planning a trip after Christmas, or Christmas itself. It stops being, I need to get to this point, and starts being each and every moment. It becomes more adventurous. I really like that too.
That's really cool. Channeling that flow. That's a great way to put it.
Focusing the flow.
Yeah.
So we're almost at an hour. Any more questions?
No.
Oh, that was easy.
I had two more written down, but they're there.
No.
they're on the back burner. That was great.
Sweet. Well, if you have any questions, if you listen to this, send them in. We'd love to hear them.
Do we have an email? We have an email.
Yep, we have an email. Yeah.
Does it get checked?
Not by me.
Not by me either.
Instagram might be easier. Thanks, man. That's been cool.
Thank you. Yeah. That was a good chat.
Very good. Very enlightening. Cool. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
That was awesome.
How many viewers did we have? 10,000.